Hello. Good, how are you?
Enjoyed your content on YouTube.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. What's your name?
Chris,
Chris, hi. Nice to meet you. Appreciate it.
when I get out of the house, stop by.
Sweet, sweet. Did you come here because of the meetup, or you were just here in general?
I've seen you online. I know of your presence.
Sweet. Awesome.
Yeah, for a hike in to see you.
Oh, cool. Awesome. How was your hike? Did you go on a hike or about
no, I
to?
just got here.
Sweet.
So you show up here at 12 o'clock on Sunday?
I try to, yeah.
Sunday.
Well, somewhere at 12 o'clock. Yeah.
Nice. I have a question for you.
Sure. Want to
So-
sit down and chat for a minute?
Sure.
Alrighty. So your plan was to come to a hike and to just chat with me?
Yeah.
Nice. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you have a question or a comment or whatever you want to say?
So yeah, like given the nature of what you do, like I wonder how you're able to maintain your belief in like the ability, for rational language to get at something like a universal truth.
To use rational language to get at a universal truth?
Yeah.
How do I cope, and how do I still think that's a thing we can do after talking
Well,
with people?
do you believe that?
I do believe there is ways to be better and worse at coming to, certain provisional levels of confidence about things.
Provisional levels of confidence. Confidence that something might be universally true,
Yes, objectively true.
truthful,
The case,
true regardless of context.
yeah, the actual state of affairs in reality, not depending on anyone's belief about it or opinion. If everyone stopped believing in it, it would still not go away.
Right. So there are ways of rationalizing that don't necessarily rely on arbitrary languages.
Languages is a thing that humans made up, but it's about intention of our words. Whatever words we use, we can use shared understanding to kind of latch on to certain things in the world. I'm not a language expert, but I don't see too big of a problem. We can
Yeah, it's
say,
incredibly powerful and useful for sure.
yeah,
But the concept of like a universalizing truth, it looks a lot like what we had when we believed in a God.
yeah. Is there a relation in your mind from a universal truth to like an absolute truth, like a God?
Yeah, it looks very similar to me.
Does universal mean absolute in your mind?
I mean, well, it's a concept that doesn't really make sense to me, but it seems that people believe that there is something that we can get at that I've been referring to as universal truth. Maybe there's a better way to phrase it.
Yeah,
Like-
what does universal mean to you? I don't know how I would describe it if I had to. It's just something that is the case for everyone. It's not a personal thing.
Yeah, something that's like correct or accurate within a particular context, right? And then when we say something is true, I presume we mean something more than that. It's not simply correct or accurate within a particular context, but true regardless of context.
True, regardless of context.
I assume that's how people use the word mostly. Do you think I'm mistaken about that, or?
I don't know. Regardless of context. Like, regardless of, what do you mean by context?
Well, within the context of a mathematical language, 2 + 2 = 4, I wouldn't claim that that's like a transcendent truth. I'd say that's within the context of a particular language.
And the axioms of the mathematical system that go into that
Right.
language game.
Right. So I've been listening to William James's Varieties of Religious Experience. Have you come across that book? Or?
I haven't. Varieties of Religious Experience. Is that the title?
Yeah.
Okay.
William James was a scientist and philosopher.
And pragmatism, I think, is close
Yeah,
in my mind to him.
Yeah, he
a
was-
kind of pragmatism.
supposedly founded, or was one of the founding members of that school of thought, I guess. I mean, I'm not super well versed, and a lot of the book goes over my head, but there are bits and pieces that really resonate with my thought.
Yeah.
Probably,
What's something from the book that resonates with you that you think is good and true that people should know about?
well, I wouldn't claim anything to be true.
Or you wouldn't claim that?
No, I
Not
wouldn't.
truly true.
Not truly true in the sense that other people make that claim. It's just incredibly powerful with respect to making sense of why people believe what they believe and anticipating maybe the future of how people are organized. Like the future of religion, the future of finance, the future of yeah. Well, probably the biggest idea that I've really resonated with in his book is that the concept of truth or philosophical ideas are contrasted against religious ideas for not like it's very difficult to rationalize a difference between religious and philosophical ideas. We do it for political ends. We do it in order to compete against like the power of a monotheistic church.
So there's utility behind truth statements more than they're trying to get at the world accurately. There's a power element to it where there's kind of a politics.
Well, I think it's the only element.
Are all statements of truth statements of power ultimately, or
Well,
attempts?
they're all statements of truth, successful statements of truth that are prevail are empowering, simply because they prevail. I'd like to hear your opinion on the relationship between power and truth.
Yeah. I'm not a postmodernist where Foucault would say, knowledge and power are like the exact same thing, like power knowledge. I've heard of that, and I think they're different. I think knowledge is something we can use for political ends and moral ends, but there's also a way of just inquiry and investigation, trying to remove our biases, our attempts at using power to describe the world.
Why would you punch? It was like there
What's an example in history? I think of Lysenko talking about a certain kind of way of growing plants that was in line with his Marxist philosophy. And he thought, I don't know if that's related to power or not, but that didn't work out. What else to think about there?
Yeah, have a hard time rationalizing how to differentiate truth from power. I mean, certainly, like, people, like, religious emotions are a phenomenon. Religious experiences are a real phenomenon. People have these experiences, and they compel them to believe this or that. And I think that goes a long way to explain how people can believe in like a truth, capital T truth.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had some chats earlier today?
I haven't. I just got sat down 15 minutes ago, like basically when you came up. I'd be glad to continue the conversation after your hike. If you want to think about these things, take a break, or you can just hang out and wait for someone else. We can chat with people on the stream, whatever you want to do. Or we can continue.
But I don't particularly want to just like to engage you if you're interested in this subject.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I'll go for a walk and come back.
Okay, cool. I'll be here for a while, for sure. Feel free to take a water, too.
Thanks.
And Chris, you said?
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Reed.
See you soon. Hey, hey. You're back.
I got a special request.
Sure.
I know you don't normally cross-examine people's beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be willing to do that for me?
To cross-examine?
Yeah,
to have you question me?
Be as aggressive as you like.
Be as aggressive as I want?
Yeah. Just because I don't so much want to just share. I want to get something out of it.
I could try. We'll see, yeah. I can try that.
Have you had some people?
I have, yeah. Had some good conversations, talked about the vaccine, talked about NFL lying to its players about the risk of brain damage. That was interesting.
Were those your suggestions, and were they what people wanted to talk about?
I have the topics over there on the board. Yeah, is the vaccine worth taking? Are any mainstream institutions lying about anything, like deliberately lying?
So I acquired a belief a few years back. A belief in the making still, I suppose.
Want to wear headphones? Check, check, hello. There we go. Just try to speak as close as you can so you can hear yourself. So what did you hear a few years ago or something?
Yeah, well, I began to acquire a belief.
No, shut up. It's like Devin. Face after her. She got a full filter on her face. Other pictures you took.
Oh, they can look bad. So like, they still look great.
That there is a concept of truth that we can all rationally pursue. That if a rational method is properly applied, we would all converge on the same set of beliefs.
There's a concept of truth that if we went by that concept, that definition of truth, we would more reliably, rationally converge on what is true.
No, the concept. I'm referencing a concept that exists out in the world of truth that can be pursued rationally, so as anyone who pursues it rationally would converge on the same set of beliefs about the world. That concept, I've lost confidence that it's like evolutionarily feasible. Like I think it's an evolutionary dead end for our species.
Oh, this might be like the classic definition of truth, like the scientific consilience idea of truth.
Yeah.
That if we pursued that, you're saying it's an evolutionary dead end, it's a dangerous thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's also a dangerous thing when applied as by theocracies, primarily due to the advent of weapons of mass destruction. So is that a pretty clear statement, or?
I think so. The classic way we think about truth and pursuing it is dangerous in our current times.
I think it's an evolutionary dead end for our species. I mean, not necessarily within the decades.
How much time do we have if we're continuing on this project?
I couldn't really say, but it's not looking good pretty like right now.
What is like the plausible scenario in your mind that would happen?
Nuclear warfare.
From like who would be at war?
I don't know, those are details that don't really interest me.
Okay. It's just, how does nuclear warfare relate to pursuing truth in this way? How does pursuing truth in that way cause that to happen?
Well, we've been pursuing truth for a long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've been relying on the evolution of culture has pretty much been dictated by the outcomes of warfare between peoples, right?
The evolution of culture has been dictated by the outcomes of war?
Yeah, certain peoples prevail over other peoples, like throughout history, right?
Yeah.
So I don't see how that same evolutionary mechanism can project into the future. Like how, given the advent of weapons of mass destruction.
Does the entire evolution of culture completely rely on war to evolve, or is there other ways culture can evolve?
Well, it's not entirely warfare, but that has historically been a huge factor.
What's the best example of war making culture evolve?
Well, I mean, people have been annihilating people for hundreds of thousands of years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cultures die out, languages die out. And there are other factors, but
And you want me to not behave in an SE way, but like to challenge you more, I don't know what the word is, just more, I don't know what to say. You just want me to be more hard, more,
well, I mean,
more dogmatic?
do you think, can you come up with some reasons why like that wouldn't be the case?
The concept of cultural evolution for me relates to a book I've read called The Secret of Our Success.
I've read that.
Oh, nice. And
Joseph Henrich.
Henrich. And yeah, I think war is part of that. Tribes subsuming other tribes, but it's also kind of a cooperation thing, and people just copying whatever's prestigious, and that can, some type of meme can cross over into other tribes, and that just propagates through time, and depending on where you are, that can then go into your genetic evolution, and there's like a gene culture co-evolution happening. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's my newly acquired, well, not newly, but for a few years now, acquired belief that that aspect of cultures that believe in we can rationalize our way toward a common truth is finished.
Yeah, would this apply to weird cultures, the Western educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic cultures?
Certainly that is within, the weird framework.
Yeah, and I think this SE is part of the weird culture. It's very weird in maybe both senses. But yeah.
Yeah, I listened to that book as well, The Weirdest People in the World.
Oh yeah, I've yet to read that one. I want to though.
Yeah, I love his work. I think he has some very powerful and useful insights.
So is SE propagating this danger into the future, or is SE not doing that? Is that something that's helping or not helping?
I wouldn't accuse SE of propagating anything.
Okay. It seems like it's part of a way to try to get to that classical conception of truth with SE. Maybe.
Yeah, and I think the concept of truth still has some utility in the world. I'm just saying, like, ultimately, I don't think it's a feasible means of organizing human activity, as it historically has been.
Using that concept of truth is not a feasible way to organize human activity?
Yeah, rallying around a common truth has historically been how people collaborate in large, at scale. So I don't. I mean, I'm not 100%, but like, I'm getting to like 80% sure that weird people aren't going to make it.
Okay.
I mean, not within their current manifestation.
What kind of people would make it?
Well, that's what I like to think about. I don't have a very solid answer for you, but
Any guesses at parts of it?
yeah. My mind has been going a lot towards the financial organization of people, just because of how powerful money is among weird people and throughout the world. Like neoliberalism, it's definitely a dead end with respect to like cooperation among people.
Neoliberalism as in like free market type things?
Yeah,
Systems?
yeah, freedom unconstrained by any religious ideals of any sort. Just individuals pursuing power. That's what we see in our neoliberal marketplace.
They're pursuing power, not self-interest? Is there other things different?
I mean, power loosely is, the power to, maybe just the power to do well,
So, in the future, in order to avoid this evolutionary dead end, we need a new financial system?
It seems to me like the method in which human activities are currently financed is one that results in warfare, ecological deterioration, disruptive technologies that threaten the welfare of most people.
Okay. Like,
Are you familiar with Yuval Harari's work?
I haven't read all of *Sapiens*, but that's what I'm trying to read at some point. Yeah.
I'm on board with his analysis. The big three dangers, existential dangers to humankind, nuclear proliferation, climate change, and disruptive technology.
Okay.
These things are all results of how we finance our activities. So it seems reorganizing the way we finance our activities is the only hopeful solution, right?
Okay. And the core problem here is this conception of truth, or is that now tangentially related?
Well, it's tangentially related.
What is the best way to conceptualize truth? Or is that not a good question to talk about right now?
Well, I think it's just a belief like any other. I mean, like I'm not against the exercise of power, like rationality. I think it's very empowering, and like the rationality of mathematics, it's incredible. But I think it's less important than the rationality of languages that allow us to do religion and cooperate on massive scale.
Yeah, I'm hearing concepts of truth and power and language. How do these things relate in your mind? And like language is kind of related to religion as well, a little bit.
Well, you need language in order to do religion, don't you? So that's all I was saying there. You can't do religion with mathematics, no, can you?
I doubt it, yeah.
You're not pushing back.
Well, okay, let me... What am I going to put? It's different from my usual style. What, pushing back?
I mean, you don't agree with me, do you?
I'm not sure what you're saying.
Oh, you're not? Okay.
Are you saying truth is equivalent to power or different? Or knowledge is equivalent to power?
Well, I mean, we've evolved to pursue power. And we use the concept of truth in order to do so.
Is power all that we've evolved, or the main thing that we've evolved to do?
Well,
I'm still asking questions.
very...
I'll make claims now. I'll say power is not the only thing that we've evolved to do.
Okay.
We've also evolved to, be a hypersocial species, that we,
But that's collective power, right? We've evolved cultures that allow us to exercise power on the collective level.
Yeah, what is power? The means of getting things to what you want?
Yeah, so survival and putting your genes into the future.
Yeah.
Which is generally, not always, but generally what people want to do.
Yeah. If not consciously, but consciously wanting to perpetuate your genetic code into the future. A lot of activity is organized around that, or caused by that process. Natural and sexual selection made us that way. But still, what's a claim we're talking about? The relationship between truth and power.
the viability of truth moving forward, given the advent of technological disruption that's threatening the welfare of human beings.
So humanity should rely less on truth in the future.
I'm not saying they should. I'm saying
If we want to avoid,
they
evolutionary
will
dead end.
if they want to be around.
yeah, humans should.
I'm just saying that it's likely that they will, or maybe we won't be around at all. But I think it's a possibility. I mean, I don't see, like, I empathize with people who see there's a lot of useless sophistry among people who speak about postmodernism. That, I mean, there's a lot of that disgusts me as much as the next rationalist. But there's also something to it.
What is that thing that's to it?
That the truths that are currently uniting us are no longer sufficient.
The truths that are uniting us, like a kind of meta-narrative.
Yeah, I mean the truths that unite liberalism, broadly speaking, it's failing us much in the same way as belief in God has been failing us, failing to unite us under a single banner.
What are some of those claims that liberalism, the meta-narrative of liberalism that is failing us? What are some of those examples?
That everyone is a free-willing individual in possession of something like a soul, entitled to rights, and that whole narrative, it doesn't jive with what we're learning in biology and
all men are created equal with certain unalienable rights.
well, I mean that came from God-fearing people.
Yeah, endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights.
Yeah, and then substituting with natural rights, it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, natural rights is just as superstitious as God-given rights.
Yeah, it doesn't resonate with me. No.
So if rights are off the table, are rights off the table? That's a Yuval Harari type thing. It's a kind of story, a myth that we just use to organize our societies. And yeah, it's something that unites us as a nation or a tribe.
Yeah, it's not that I find it unappealing entirely. It's the culture that I was born into. I just see it as problematic. And I don't want to just throw it out and have nothing in its place, because that would be problematic as well.
So if it's false that all men are created equal, that there's no reason to believe that, now where do we go?
Well, we need political structure, regardless of whether all men are created equal, that facilitates massive collaboration between all men and women. So,
Do we just write down a principle on a piece of paper and say, if you want to be around us, you have to believe that?
constitutions work. I see no reason why constitutions can't work independent of belief in truth or God. Social contracts. Good ones, well-constituted social contracts will inspire people. People will, I don't see any reason why they can't unite under a well-written social contract.
cool.
So,
Have you read The Narrow Corridor?
no, what's that?
Darren Hasemoglu, by the writers of the book Why Nations Fail. They talk about liberty as being inside a narrow corridor. It's the balance between the power of state and the power of society. So if we're talking about power, liberty lies in the balance between these two things. That's kind of the core of my political philosophy at the moment.
Society. It's a liberal society. Weird people.
Not necessarily weird people. I think they would claim people in the narrow corridor that have the most liberty are currently the weird societies, but it doesn't. The power of society can be not good. There can be too much power over there. They call it the cage of norms, the set of norms and values that certain societies have don't allow for the increase of capacity for a state. They're like a lot of honor culture, a lot of stuff like that prevents institutions from happening and being created and having any kind of legitimacy towards them if the norms aren't there, if the society is not there.
Right. That was broken by the Catholic Church and by other monotheistic hegemonies.
Yeah. So that's a claim I would make. I would claim everyone wants liberty, and the way to get to liberty is to balance the power between state and society. And liberty is not going to lead to an evolutionary dead end. Maybe I would make that claim.
So, do we have society in the absence of a state? Like, doesn't the state make our society? I'm not sure I understand that dichotomy.
The state is the institutions, the laws, and the government, the courts, the bureaucracy of managing conflict in an ordered way. That's the state, with like its police and military. And society is the people within a certain area that have certain norms and values.
So society is very plural.
Yeah.
So it's not really one thing.
Yeah, it's just the people and what they believe and value.
So, in the face of that plurality, the state will dominate, right?
Unless the state is given power in a way that protects minority rights, back to rights, if it allows for pluralism and freedom of speech and all of this other conflict resolution systems of liberalism.
And the people, the administrators of the state must also believe in the precepts of liberalism.
Yeah, potentially. Although some, and they call these different organizations of state and society leviathans from Hobbes. A shackled leviathan is what you get when you're in the corridor. A despotic leviathan is if the state has too much power, and a absent leviathan is what's happening when there's no state. It's all society's power. So maybe if you're in a despotic leviathan, you're not following the principles of liberalism, so there could be states without liberal principles, maybe like China.
I think the Chinese social credit system is a fascinating phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
It could be contrasted against like a neoliberal antisocial credit system. I think there are probably strengths and weaknesses to both.
The neoliberal anti-social credit system? What do you mean by
Well,
that?
Yeah, so I would what I mean by that is that weird people generally honor currencies that aren't backed by pro-social principles. I mean, it's not so bad as like found objects in the world, like seashells or precious metals or Bitcoin. Those literally have no pro-social constitutional framework. They're just objects in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the case of fiat currency, like the USD, at least it's backed by a relatively pro-social constitution. I often wonder if we might see the rise of like a global credit union with an even more pro-social constitution that distributes credit in accordance with pro-social principles rather than profit by the bankers.
Yeah. Would that be more towards the China model?
No. I mean,
It would just have it would have better moral
I don't think
principles.
that I don't think the Chinese leadership has a good pro-social constitution. They're just interested in maintaining hegemony. But I wonder if that's not like a possibility. Like, if some entrepreneur with some resources were to establish like a global credit union, in which like credit is reserved for social entrepreneurs as opposed to consumers and antisocial entrepreneurs. And if that was a successful system, it seems like people would flock to it in the absence of gainful employment in other systems, in the absence of states that provide welfare for their members.
Oh, hey Jacob, how's it going?
Good. Good to be here.
Cool. That's Jacob. He's also from the meetup. Did you watch the stream last week?
On YouTube?
Yeah.
Was Jacob on it?
Yeah, he did a bunch of conversations.
I missed it.
Yeah.
I'll go back.
So we talked a lot here about power and truth and politics and rights and all of this. This is fascinating to me. I think a lot more people should be, thinking about these things. I think we are at risk of a lot of existential threats. And should we change our conception of various things like truth or rights or other things? I don't know. Good to talk about though.
Yeah.
Did you want to hang out and talk with other people using SE, or did you want to just hang out and talk more about this?
I don't know that I would be a good SC facilitator.
How did you get into knowing about me, knowing about SE? What's the history?
I must have just randomly run across you on YouTube. Maybe it was Meetup, I don't know. Yeah, I like what you do. It's a good survey of like psychological variation among people.
Yeah, but part of my project is kind of just an anthropological, interesting thing to do.
Uh-huh.
So I want to know who's out there, what they believe, what kind of people they are. It's interesting.
Do you subscribe to the idea that The reasons we give for what we believe are largely post hoc justifications of our emotional disposition.
Yeah.
Here's $50 million. Shut your mouth. You never can.
You do.
And unless we're in a community which incentivizes disconfirmation and conversation, and it makes it, and you're more prestigious in that community if you're humble and you have a lot of epistemic humility, and that's the way you get status in that community, is by updating your beliefs according to evidence.
Right. But you do hold that SE helps people to maybe make their way to something like the truth.
I do. A lot of people's beliefs they've never thought about, and they can bring up concepts and just objects that are like subconscious that they've never thought about, and turn them into objects in their mind to really concretely think about, and rather than system 1 go into system 2. And that can put people on a journey of, like, if they discover something is like not a good way to really think about something, or it's inconsistent with other ways of their reasoning, they may want to discard certain ways of knowing things, and that can apply to all their beliefs. So it's kind of a shortcut to upgrading the sanity water line in the culture in general.
Probably some therapeutic value in it as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate you coming by. And feel
My
free to hang
pleasure.
out, or you can just come back next week, maybe.
Okay, we'll hang out for a little while.
Sure. So, yeah.
Hey.